Good morning and welcome back to Forge Yourself Forward. I'm your host, Mike. It is 6 a.m. here on Friday morning in New York. As you can finally see, we actually see the color blue in the sky for the first time in a few days. The smoke has mostly cleared. It's a lot better breathing wise. So I thought, what better than to do a quick ice bath and to kind of give you my thoughts on the good, the bad, and the ugly with regard to one of these portable ice pods. So right now, temperature of the water is about 58 to 60 degrees. I put in as much ice as I have, and we're gonna get going, and we'll do 3 minutes. All right, set the timer. Okay, so I've spoken before about why I like the ice baths, what I find to be really beneficial about them, but I haven't really talked about owning one, the things that it takes for you to maintain it, to make it cold, the pros, the cons, and even somewhat the ugly. And let's get into it right now. So the pros of having this kind of portable ice bath are several. First of all, it's fairly inexpensive. I think you can get an entry-level model for one of these somewhere around about $100. Compared to a lot of the other ice baths, you're talking either, I know for instance like the Ice Barrel's $1,000, the plunge and things where you have your own cooling unit, that can go up to I think $4,000 to $5,000, and you go all the way up to $20,000. So price point is obviously a huge issue with regard to a lot of these. Another thing a lot of people don't necessarily talk a lot about is this doesn't take up a lot of space. As you can see, I'm 5'8" tall. This is maybe 3 feet across. It's not very big, you know, diameter wise. It's just not that big. And we've been 3 minutes. Here we go. 1, 2. Now, one hack that I found that helps make these bigger pieces of ice as you're looking at, and what I found works, is I got these containers. As you can see, the plastic container right behind me on this shoulder right here. What I found is if you fill up about 6 of them with water, I think they're each about 8 quarts or so. I filled them out, you know, approximately a gallon to a gallon and a half of water. If you put them in the freezer, it takes approximately 2 days. So if you have 8 to 10 of them in a freezer, if you have enough space for that, you can take 4 or 5 out, and generally that'll cool the water pretty quickly. In my case, I used 4 today, plus the ice from my refrigerator, and that was able to get the water down from 76 down to about 58. For me, that's perfect. If you're the kind of person, though, that likes to have the ice bath in the 40s, and you're in a warmer temperature, like right now it's like 62 degrees outside, so it's going to take a lot more ice. That's usually when I use about 80 pounds of ice when I'm going to either the distributor or someplace that has it. Now, I will tell you, 80 pounds of ice runs me about $22 a time. So if you're doing that several times a week, that can add up quickly. So just be aware of that. If you don't have a freezer, be aware of that. It might be difficult to get enough ice together in order to cool this tub as cold as you might want it. And now let's get into some of the other 1 or 2 goods that I have. It's convenient. You know, I just literally walk outside my house, put some ice in, 5 minutes later, it's about as cold as it's going to get. Jump in for a couple minutes like I'm doing right now. I mean, you really can't beat that in terms of convenience. Now, let's get into some of the cons. It is difficult to get this thing super cold, as I've said. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that regard. If you are using ice, it's going to get expensive. You know, for me, if I'm doing, say, 40 pounds of ice is $11, 80 pounds is $22. So every time you do that, if you're going and getting ice, not only that, you have to consider the time. Are you getting in your car? Are you taking a little cart to the market? Whatever you're doing, that's going to take time. So just consider that before you make any decisions, especially if you don't have a freezer that's big enough. And then you have to decide, how cold do you want it? If you want this in the 40s, you're going to have a hard time doing it without a real chiller. And you know, chillers run anywhere from about $1,000 to $2,000 on their own, and you know, I don't know how much electricity they use. I don't have one. But for right now, this works. Another con, well, not really a con, just a reality, is you do have to change the water with this approximately 5 to 6 days. It does get a lot of sediment at the bottom for whatever reason, which I'm still trying to figure out if that's just from me and that's concerning, or just in general. So you do have to change the water in this every few days, and that's kind of where I get into what I call the ugly. The ugly is, what do you do with 80 gallons of water? It's a lot of water, and you just have this little hose you can see right there on the bottom. Whew, it's getting cold. You know, you have to have an area for that to run off to. So just consider that. You don't want to flood your backyard. You don't want to flood your apartment. You don't want to flood anything in general. So be aware of that. Overall, I would say it's a very positive thing. You know, the issues of filling up water, putting it in containers, and putting it in the freezer maybe takes a total of 10 minutes, maybe. You know, it's really not a lot of time investment. I would argue it's almost the same as getting in a car, going down the block or two to a store, picking up ice, and coming back. You probably save time doing it at your house. But it's something to consider, and it's tedious. And, you know, if you have a freezer, just a standalone freezer, it makes it a lot easier. So it's something to consider. If you're interested in getting into this, I think this is a great entry level. This is how I just got into it. I've been doing it now almost every single day for about 3 weeks. I absolutely love it. I do find health benefits. I've now been in this, oh wow, I've been in this 5 minutes now. So time to go on there. And join me next time if you're interested. Really, look into one of these portable units. It's a great entry level, and then you can learn if you really love it or not. Thank you for joining me.